Hi there, today we're going to go over how our family makes homemade corn tortillas in our home. What I've done here is I have laid out a few of the items that you'll need. Some of them are basic items in the kitchen, one or two of them you may not have. This is our obviously well-used pancake griddle, a large mixing bowl, a plate, and a large folded cloth that we will dampen. We have a tortilla holder for the finished tortillas. You don't have to have that, but you do need something with a lid to hold the heat and the steam. A spatula, obviously dry and wet measuring cups. And this is one of the key items that you need if you don't have. And this is an actual tortilla press. It was bought at a local grocery store. This is a cast iron one. You can find them at the Hispanic grocery store. It's usually made out of aluminum, and there's other commercial ones out there, but the cast iron is nice because it's good and heavy. This is a key here too. This is just a thin piece of plastic bag like you get in the grocery store when you buy a head of lettuce or a head of cabbage, and we've cut it to size to fit. The main ingredient is masa, and if you're not familiar with Hispanic cooking, this is not just corn flour. It is actually corn that has been boiled for 5 minutes in water and lime and then allowed to soak overnight, and the hull of the corn is removed, and this ups the protein level, and it's very similar to hominy, and then it's dried and ground. This is an example of what's in our local grocery store. We actually choose to order masa in bulk of a lot better grade than we can buy locally online. And then this is salt. But if you're interested in what masa actually is, then plug this YouTube video in. This is a professional chef in San Antonio, Texas, making masa and explaining the process. It's pretty interesting, but they can do a lot better job at explaining what it is than I can. I just want you to know that it's not standard cornmeal. Okay, I'm going to turn the camera off, and we're going to set this stuff up and start producing tortillas. This is going to be a key ingredient as well. You don't need this many hands to produce tortillas, but many hands make light work, and our family certainly enjoys eating them as well as making them.
You got that right.
You need to measure 4 cups of masa. You can use a smaller amount, but this is the ratio that we use for our family. We start with 4 cups dry measurement of masa. Then add 2 teaspoons of salt. We find that it's better to stir the dry salt in the dry masa before you add the water. Just stirring it with a fork to blend the dry ingredients. One thing I failed to mention about the water when showing you the supplies is that you really need boiling water. We actually use an electric tea kettle to do this, but we use 3.5 cups of water, and that's boiling hot water. And from there you have to just work the masa to a consistency that you can make into small balls of dough for the press. Once you pour the boiling water in, then you begin to mix with a fork. The dry masa tends to stick to the side of the bowl, so just go around the sides and take it back to the center. And when you put boiling water in it, it's going to be too hot instantly to work with your hands, but you can kind of see the consistency here. And you'll know when you begin to handle it by hand. If it's extremely sticky and gooey, then you need to add a little more dry masa flour. If it's a little caked like it is here, we want to add a little more water. The kids here have made them several times, so they kind of know what to look for. It's just going to take a few batches before you get it right, Don't get too frustrated. The first batch may not turn out just like you wanted, but after a few batches, you get it dialed in to what it should look like and feel like. This stuff is not grainy at all. It's very smooth, like wheat flour, and it's pretty silky to work with. The main thing is to get all of the masa good and wet, that there should be no dry product in there. And during this time, it's a good time to go ahead and begin heating up your electric skillet. We're plugged in, and we just max it out to 400 on the electric skillet here. And that lets you know your time frame. If you're heating up your skillet, then it's once you can physically handle it for the heat of the water, then we begin to go ahead and make the masas into small balls of dough. And that's where your plate with the wet towel comes in. And this is a ping pong ball, so you can see the size that you're after for the press is about the size of a ping pong ball. And as we use the press, we put plastic on the bottom and we lay the plastic on the top. In the meantime, they keep making balls and putting them under the wet towel. That way they don't dry out. As the tortilla comes out, you then peel the top layer of plastic off, and you flip it over in your hand and peel the bottom layer of plastic off and lay it flat on the griddle. Once you lay it flat on the griddle, do not touch it. If it folds on you, quickly take it off of the griddle and throw it back into the bowl and start over. Because at this point, you need to think of it kind of like a pancake, because it's going to be a problem until it actually heats enough to seal up the bottom. We've tried using the press with no plastic. It doesn't work. It bonds to the press. We've actually made these with a rolling pin between two plastic bags. It's very slow, but you can do it. The press of some kind is a key to getting an amount of tortillas done quickly. But as far as that goes, it's not an absolutely high-speed process. In our house, everyone gets involved, and once you do this one time, you're going to quickly understand that the finished tortilla that you're getting, doing it this way, is absolutely better than anything you can buy in a packaged corn tortilla product in the store. And one other thing about the masa, when you go to shop for your masa, there is regular masa and there is tamale grade masa. We've actually made these with the tamale grade masa, but it's difficult. That masa turns out very gooey and very sticky. So just watch for that on the labeling of the bag. You can see here we put one down that had a wrinkle or two in it, and it's best just to leave it alone and let it seal up on the bottom, and it'll be okay when we flip it. I want you to notice when we place the ball of dough on the tortilla press, it's a little offset towards the hinge, because as you press it, it tends to move the ball and the volume of the masa away from the hinge. Now, as these cook, you're going to begin to see the water steam out of the masa. And this is exactly what it's supposed to do. And right here, you can see the edges curling up. This lets you know that that one is ready to be flipped. And if your griddle is really hot, or if you're actually using a cast iron griddle over a stove eye, you can get it hotter than this electric griddle. And sometimes they'll steam up and separate, and it'll inflate like a pillow. This is good too. It's just steaming from the inside. And the next step, we're not quite there yet, is to put them inside of the tortilla warmer. And we put a dry paper towel in. That way it won't, the last one, the bottom one, won't stick to the bottom, and then this is actually what we take to the table to serve them. I want to give you a close-up of the texture of the tortilla to show you what it should look like. When it's ready to come off, we just flip this one. You want both sides to look like this. If you make these cracks in the skin get too big, you're just drying it out. It's not going to be flexible when you go to load it with your meat and your vegetables to make your soft corn tortillas into tacos. These are looking really good here. This one is still got a little time left to flip it. And all the time we're moving forward, making balls of dough, putting them ready to go under the wet towel. And this way when they sit there, they don't dry out. These are absolutely excellent when served straight off the griddle here for your meal. But if you want to make a batch up like we do sometimes and put them up for storage, then when they come off of the griddle, you would just spread them out on the counter, on plates or on a baker's cooling rack, and just let them come down to room temperature, and then put them in a large Ziploc bag. And then you can make you 10, 20, 30 of them up and have them ready to go for later. But if you stack them up hot in a Ziploc bag, they will steam together and get gummy. If you're not going to use them for this meal, you really need to let them come down to room temperature separately, then stack them. And this is the result we're after. Homemade, fresh, warm corn tortillas ready to be made into tacos, or we take these and cut them and drop them in a deep fryer and make our own homemade corn tortilla chips. But we'll do that in the next video.